Word detox means a lot of different things to many different people. Sometimes it has a very negative connotation. So in my experience, what I have seen, if you look at medicine and spiritual traditions, human beings have always had the need to cleanse themselves, right? So you look at ancient practices of medicine, you look at things like bloodletting or leeches. Back for the ancient Greeks and Romans, they thought that if something was wrong with you, that one of the bad humors was inside of you and it had to be purged in some way, right? So if we look at panchakarma, which is the ancient Ayurvedic tradition, so going back thousands and thousands of years, this whole system of really getting clear in the body through herbs and massage and oils. And then I think of, herbal medicine throughout Europe over time, whether in Germany, Switzerland, the UK, really looking at different herbs to cleanse the body, whether coming out or sweating, and how important that is. And then what about spiritual traditions? The way that I see it is that there's really this blend between medicine and spirituality that needs to come together even more. So it's the sense of being connected to all that is. And so if you look at all the different religious traditions, there are periods of fasting that you typically see. So I think as human beings, we just want to come clean. We want to be free of what, I grew up Catholic, so for me it was, I went to church, I told the priest my sins, I felt better. So maybe there's something about mental, emotional clearing as well as a physical purging of the body. So detox has many meanings, of course, and in the States at least, and I'm not sure about London, maybe you can tell me about the UK, but there are many different detox programs, and all of them are so different. Some of them have dietary supplements that are involved. Some of them talk about juicing or fasting. In fact, there was one that just came out that one of my students told me about, which is the banana diet. Eat 30 bananas a day and detoxify, right? So there are these extremes out there that I think are just a little bit too over the top and give detoxification a little bit of a bad reputation. So for 20 years, I practiced as a functional nutritionist. So I have a PhD in nutritional biochemistry, and I was working with patients in a clinic doing nutritional detox. And what I noticed was that many of these patients experienced these inner catharses as they went through a nutritional program. So even though they were just changing their diet, it was like they were changing their lives. So things happened to them. So they either wanted to break up their marriage, they wanted to start a new relationship, they wanted to quit their job, they were really fed up with stress, they wanted to do something else, they really wanted an upheaval. So one day it really clicked for me that rather than have a detox that just focuses on the body, because the body and mind are so interconnected, why wouldn't I create a program that encompassed lifestyle as well as food? So that's really what Whole Detox is about. It's a holistic way to detoxify, and it requires no dietary supplements. It's only about colorful food and mind-body practices. So I'll tell you a little bit about the program, but I do want to talk a little bit about the color. Did you all get that table that was passed out? I want to be sure that everybody has one. So you should have one of these. Yeah, great. So this table is really the navigation roadmap. This is within the book itself, so you can always reference it as a guide. So one of the things I noticed as a scientist was that my training was not complete. I felt as though I needed to heal from certain things that nutrition alone wasn't helping me with. So I started to paint. In my late 20s, I started just to paint these wild pictures on canvases, lots of color, and I didn't even know where this was coming from. And I was really tuned into the saturation, the hues of color, even though I'm not a trained artist. And I started to see people as colors. Even today, I can still connect with somebody, meet somebody, and kind of connect to what color are they in that moment. So there was this whole science of color that I decided to explore. And aside from my training in biochemistry, I also looked at other ancient traditions like Ayurvedic medicine, which I was very drawn to. So I started taking yoga when I was 19 years old. And I realized that they recognized something unique about the body that we were not recognizing in Western medicine. and that would be the chakra system. You can also call it chakras, right? This is a Sanskrit word. And essentially these chakras are what I call psychoneuroendocrine glands. These are where all the endocrine glands line up in the body, where there's a lot of activity. And each of these glands, each of these centers is connected to a color. So it made sense for me to start connecting these different systems, these colors, with the broader picture of health and who we are. Because if I just thought about mind, body, spirit, I felt like that's saying a lot of stuff in 3 words. But I want to break it down even more. So I came up with this color-coded system to more or less gamify or to make detox more accessible. So what I was thinking we would do is I would tour you through the colors quickly, because one of the first things that people do before they go on the detox program is they take a questionnaire. It's called the Spectrum Quiz, and it's in the book. So you can go through that quiz and kind of see which color for you, which system is out of balance. And as we go through them, I want you to do a little self-diagnosis and figure out right now and here which system is out of balance. It won't be too hard to gauge, I'm sure. So we'll start with the color red. The color red is connected to our survival. Let me think, do you have stop signs here that are red in color? Same, okay, good. So this color red denotes something about being alert or having to stop and pay attention to something. There was actually, in the book, what you're going to find is that I looked into the science of all the different colors. There was a study on the color red showing that when people ate from red-colored plates, they actually ate less than they did from white and blue-colored plates. There's something that cues us psychologically about the color red. So that connects to the adrenal glands, which is all about our survival, our ability to exist, and to feel safe in the physical world. It's about the body. So what you're going to see here is the anatomy, the physiology, the core issues, and then the foods. So this is much broader than just looking at a part of the body. There's a system at play here, and it connects into food and how you live. So somebody who has an issue in their root system would be somebody who's kind of flighty. You know, somebody who's not very grounded, they're not really connected to their physical body. They may have a lot of joint pain, they may have a lot of inflammation. You kind of know these people, right? Because they're not fully centered and grounded, as I like to call it. So within the program, the first 3 days of Whole Detox, I focus on the color red. And we focus on certain themes like safety, community, and tribe. So in addition to the color red, I bring in these themes of what does it mean to be physical? And I've had thousands of people take this questionnaire. So many people are not really grounded in their bodies. They don't trust their bodies. They don't feel safe in their bodies. They also don't have a sense of community and tribe. Kind of like they can just get together with other people that think and believe the same things as them, and then they feel that sense of trust and safety. So the root is a big one. So I focus on the root with certain, I have 7 things within Whole Detox. Let me just make sure that everybody has one of these circles. Do you have one of these? So if you look on this side without the Whole Detox in the middle, everybody have one? The 7 modalities of Whole Detox. So for every day of the 21 days, you have a menu of 7 different options to choose from. So especially with the root, I think of nutrition. What grounds us in our bodies? You know, protein, eating regularly, eating in community are some of the things. And of course, you know, the book goes into much more detail. So that's really the root. So anybody feel like the root is something that needs to be balanced for them? You know, I'm always working, especially when you travel. You need to get grounded wherever you're at, right? So you start eating the foods wherever you're at. You start talking to people to ground you into that space. Okay, so that's the root. Number 2 is the orange system, which I call the flow. And this is about our emotions. You know, many detox programs, the reasons why they fail in part is because they don't recognize that you're more than your physical body, that you have toxic emotions and emotional baggage that you have to clear. So emotions connects into the reproductive glands, things like ovaries and testes, and also connects into themes like being creative and playful and fun and expressive. And if you look at the food column, you're going to see that fats and oils are the food substance that connects into this body system, as well as orange-colored foods. Okay? So for any of you, do you feel like orange might be the system that you need to work on? The emotions? Or you're pretty good with emotions? Nobody wants to say, I know. You know, I feel like when people go through Whole Detox, we get people like Dillis they've been through the program a number of times, and then they work on different things each time, or they might work on the same thing. So you might have one thing that keeps coming up again, and it just keeps surfacing, so you have to go deeper. So for the emotions, what we do within flow, if you see the circle, it's all about tracking your emotions. And what the science tells us is when we can identify our emotions, we can better regulate our emotions. People with good emotional regulation actually live longer and better quality of lives than people who do not express their emotions. Now, that doesn't mean that every emotion you have, it should come out in a volatile way. You know, there's really a good spectrum of where to be on that. But what I see time and time again is that people are stuffing their emotions down. They're eating their emotions down for comfort rather than letting them out. So that's part of the detox process. And in fact, in the data that I collected from the program, there was a 77% improvement in emotional eating. And over 75% of being overweight, the cause of being overweight, is due to emotional reasons. So there's a strong connection with emotions that I don't think that we fully recognize and really embrace. Okay? Yellow. Anybody like the color yellow? Let me just see a show of hands. Like if you just like the color yellow, I just would like to, oh wow. There was a study in Manchester, England, so I feel like it's appropriate to mention that here, where they surveyed people on their health and their happiness. And they found that people that like the color yellow, this kind of yellow, a bright yellow, tended to be healthier than people who did not choose the color yellow. In fact, they even surveyed people that were anxious and depressed, and they found that they liked the color gray. You know, so there is something about colors and our moods and how we feel in the moment. So even if you're not feeling happy, I would say put some yellow in your environment. You know, wear yellow. For a long time, I used to not wear yellow because I felt like, oh, I just, you know, I'm so, you know, Irish looking red. You know, it just doesn't look good on me. But actually, I keep it in my environment. I bring something, even if I'm not wearing it, I like to have it around me. I mean, think of like smiley faces. What color are they? Yellow. Kids love yellow too. They surveyed kids. All right, so what does yellow stand for? Yellow is the triangle symbol. This is now, we're moving up the body into the pancreas. So this is how we break things down. Everybody that I can see in the health field is so incredibly obsessed about the gut. Are you noticing that here? There's like a gut summit here, probiotics here. I mean, everybody is talking about the gut. I feel like we're in the age of the gut. And I think in part it's connected to the system of yellow, which is more than just digestion. This system of yellow, which we would call, I call it the fire center, is surely how we break things down, but it's also about how much energy we're giving out in our lives. So it's kind of, if you take the fire theme and apply it, it's kind of like, are you feeling burnt out? Do you have that phrase here? Yeah, you feel burnt out. You feel like you're spent. You've given it your all. So when your fire has gone out, typically you don't digest well. They recognize this in Chinese medicine as well as Ayurvedic medicine. There are certain ways to kind of look at the fire element in the body. So you've got to renew that fire. And so I connect carbohydrate to this center. You know how so many people are eating so much sugar? Is that here as well, where you see people just drinking lots of energy drinks, sugar drinks, candy, just, you know, sweets galore? I think in part it's because they feel so depleted in their power center. So the modality that goes together with yellow is thoughts. So in traditional medicine systems, they look at thoughts and how we process thoughts. And so one of the things that you'll find in Whole Detox as part of the 21-day program is I have very quick thought pattern exercises that you can do. Everything's timed. It doesn't take very long, but we think on average per day. Anybody want to guess how many thoughts we think? It's actually been studied. Yes, 60 to 80,000 different thoughts per day. And most of those thoughts are negative thoughts, and they keep recycling. But nobody talks about that in a detox program, which I felt like, being a nutritionist, I have seen that people can change their food, But that works to one extent. It doesn't give them the full extent until they really get into the emotions and the mind. When they get into their thoughts and they look at what they're thinking, it's almost like they have to go on a thought diet. You've got to know what you're thinking and then get in there and change it up. And that's probably one of the most difficult things to do. But I do bring awareness to that within Whole Detox. All right, let's move up to the green, which is the heart. How many of us feel like we give, and never get back? Or we don't feel right about giving, or we don't feel right about receiving, either way. So with the green, this is all about the cardiovascular system. What is the number one killer in the Western world? It's the cardiovascular disease problem. Then there's also respiratory issues, asthma, breathing. So here I focus on movement. If you look at your little circle, we focus on movement. And I have really simple movements so that people can do these every day. Like literally, this just takes minutes. Green leafy vegetables are the food that I connect to this center. So for people that have shut down their hearts, what I have found in clinical practice is that there's this pattern with them not eating enough greens. So I started to put it together like, well, isn't this interesting? They're not getting an expansion from all of those nitrates in the food that are just naturally occurring in green leafies. So that's that. The next one is aquamarine, which is the throat, the thyroid gland. So many women these days have issues with thyroid health, whether autoimmune issues, antibodies, overactive thyroid, underactive thyroid. So in this place, we talk about words and what we're speaking. So this is probably the only detox that you've ever heard of where I actually do focus on lying, swearing, blaming, exaggerating, just excessive storytelling, as much as I focus on, are you being too quiet? Are you keeping a stiff upper lip because you don't want to say something? Because that's not good and healthy either. So we focus on what I call the truth element. And the way that translates into food is I bring in more soups, sauces, juices, smoothies, and teas on these days of the program so that people can engage in mindful eating. And that's something that not a lot of people do. All right, in our remaining time here, just two more. The next one is the blue-purple, the indigo. This is the pituitary gland, which in ancient medicine, we would call this the third eye or the master gland of the body. It really does regulate thyroid, adrenals, ovaries, testes, everything. So in this master gland, I'm focusing on the brain. I'm focusing on sleep. I'm focusing on dreams. And then visualization. So within the 21-day program, there are 21 different visualizations. I have seen in clinical practice that if people aren't visualizing what they want to look like, feel like, be like, act like, it's harder to get there. They just kind of take what they get. But when we know where we're going, it makes it so clear what choices we need to make. And that's the essence of visualization. I actually have another book, which is, it's a complete handbook of quantum healing with 100 different visualizations for different conditions. So if you've got acne or yeast infections or anything in between, I've got a number of visualizations to take you through. So I really believe in the power of visualization. I've seen it work. And then, of course, blue-purple foods, blueberries, boysenberries, things that are intense and affect the mood. The last one is the spirit. So the spirit is technically the color white, even though you see it as lavender because it's nicer to the eye than just seeing white here. So when we think of white, we think of white light, we think of purity, we think of the part of us that is not physical. So when we focus on this within Whole Detox, we focus on meditation. So you can see that from here, the spirit, where it will say meditation. And I don't go with meditation in the traditional sense. I use a very expansive sense. I have a lot of creative meditations. Like, for example, I believe that it can be very meditative to be in your garden. I believe it can be very meditative to walk in a forest. So it's all about going on the inside in order to connect. And this is also something that I see time and time again where people aren't connected on the inside at that deeper level. So then they feel scattered. When anything comes their way, they feel like they can just kind of waver because they don't really know. They're not grounded in body. They're not grounded in spirit. So within Whole Detox, I really try to bring together all of these 7. So the program is, I believe in personalized nutrition. I don't think everybody should eat like everybody else. So there's an omnivore track, then there's a vegan track. So you can pick which one you like more. There are recipes for every day, and one of the things that I learned from doing detox programs over and over again was the cost. That many people don't have a lot of money to make special recipes on a daily basis. So I had where you make certain foods on one day and then carry them over to the next day for lunch. So everything just kind of weaves in together. It's kind of like it's all very cohesive. So every 3 days of the program has a color focus, going from red until white, and the theme is there as well. And one of the things that people have told me is they get kind of stressed and they say, Deanna, this could mean that I'm going to change my life. I don't know if I'm ready for this. So what I say is just take it really slowly. You know, pick one of those things on the menu of those 7 different things that you can choose from. Maybe don't do them all, or if you feel like doing them all on certain days, you can do that too. It doesn't matter, because what affects the mind affects the body. What affects the body will affect the mind. So everything is all connected. So I want to pause there and just have you ask any questions. I think that that's about the program. So your question is about, well, first of all, why these different shapes? So each of the shapes have a different resonance or kind of an archetype to them. So they were all very carefully thought out. So the diamond shape refers to 2 points going up, 2 points coming down. The heart in traditional medicine and spirituality is considered to be the divining rod between heaven and earth, or between body and spirit. So the 2 points coming up to spirit, 2 points going down to the body. And then this expansive interface of the heart, which is kind of the middle part. So that's what and plus, I really love that in Chinese medicine, they consider the heart to be the sovereign of your being. It's not the mind, it's the heart. And so when I think of the royal, the regal feel of the heart sitting on its throne, metaphorically, you know, the diamond is kind of like that gem, that just the clarity that the heart provides when we need answers.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I've never been asked that before. So it's a smoothie for breakfast. Then there's a fresh lunch, so something that's more raw with some kind of protein. And then a cooked meal for the evening. And then there are our snacks if you choose to take them. So that aligns with more of the Ayurvedic medicine principle of noontime, metabolic fires burning bright, more digestive fire for things like a raw type of fresh meal, the smoothie in the morning to get some nutrient density. And I have protein at every meal because protein is essential when you look at the biochemistry of detoxification. You need the protein in that way. Yeah, thank you for your question. Pear. So a soft, ripe pear in conjunction with that, or an apple, or something that you find to be a little bit sweet, and also something a little bit fleshy. And I know from my father, who is kind of a junk food guy, he has said, now that he's gone through the program, that everybody can do a green smoothie. If he could do it, he believes everybody can. So thank you for asking about the green smoothie, because and anticipate that you actually might feel more energy after a green smoothie. And the reason why is because a lot of those compounds in greens act on the vasculature to open it up. But now here's the key. When you drink your smoothie, chew it. Keep it in the mouth for a little bit, because the saliva contains bacteria that will help with the conversion into those really important compounds. Chew your smoothies.
Yeah.
I hope that that's a takeaway for all of you, and you know, it's always a fun thing to do, just to spend time in that meal, whether it's a smoothie or you're sitting down to kind of a soup or a regular meal, just to have that time to really take it in. That's right. Why do they choose spinach for that, right? The strength, the vitality. Great question. Thank you. Anybody else? Do you like the colors? Like, did the color part intrigue you? You know, I feel like I can talk with children and I can talk with elders about color. Like, everybody gets into color. If I ask you, you know, what is your favorite color? Chances are you know. And you'll say, well, today my favorite color is this. Or maybe you're a person who you've liked the same color for your whole life. You know, for me, it's always been green and purple. I just love those colors. Of course, I like all the colors, but something special about green and purple for me. So what I would say is, you know, connect into color as much as you can. That would be one takeaway for me to you, is note the colors you're wearing, note the colors in your wardrobe, look at the colors in your house, what colors are on your plate. It's all relevant. So before we close, can I just have three quick takeaways? What are you going to take away from this talk tonight? What's maybe one little tip or one thing that really, yeah, of course, has the 4 points, and this is the fourth center. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's why I chose the diamond. So back to your original question. Does that answer that for you?
I think you meant fire and triangle.
Oh, why the fire is the triangle. Okay, it has 3 points, and it's the third system. And think of fire. It goes up and out. Much like the triangle, it diverts and really focuses all of its energy at that point and kind of has that spark, right? So the triangle to me is a very action-oriented feeling of power, similar to this center. Why the color yellow? For the triangle? Well, and actually I have taken these colors from traditional medicine, so it's not essentially something that I've come up with. It makes sense to me because I believe that we carry this spectrum within us. So I'm just assigning a color, but it doesn't mean that your stomach is really yellow. It's just a way to color code the different systems to remember what goes where. Easier way for me to just talk about it. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. So what I have found is that when people don't like colors as much as liking them, it's relevant and significant. And what I would say is to explore that a little bit. See what happens when you do eat green foods or you are exposed to green in your environment. You know, how do you feel? So I think that this is really interesting because I've had some patients who have just outright said that they don't like green. And as I go deeper into working with them, oftentimes I find a lot of emotional trauma, a lot of issues with the heart, a lot of loss, a lot of grief that we hold in that heart space. And so it kind of makes us pull back sometimes. So I'm not saying that everybody who doesn't like the color green would have a lot of grief, but there might be some emotional underpinning and reason why we don't get into that color. So I would say just to kind of tiptoe out there and explore green in the ways that you do feel comfortable with it. It's still gross. To each their own, you know, I know everybody likes different colors. And see how that changes throughout your life too. Because, you know, young children, if I take these systems of health, there's an age correlation too. You know, young children starting off at the root, getting their identity, and then old age, we're in the spirit, where we're barely body, we're moving out of the body, and then everything in between. So sometimes when we go through those love years, those heart years, we may have some things happen to us too. Good question. I've never had these kinds of questions before. This is my kind of language. Parts to that. One is a personal story. So I grew up with in a very strict household where my mother was really into food. My dad was a police officer, and there was a lot of we couldn't eat certain things, so that made me want to eat them even more. And because that happened, I started craving sugar. I started emotionally eating. I started binging. I started developing acne quite badly in my teens. I had irritable bowel syndrome. This then went into endometriosis, which is an inflammatory condition of the uterus. And so I had a lot of my own health issues, and so that caused me to start seeking. You know, what is a scientist but a seeker of truth? You're looking for patterns. So I didn't find it in my medical classes. I didn't find it in my physiology classes. I found some bits and pieces, but then I had to go outside of that. So I started taking yoga. I started studying world religions. I started looking into, I minored in English literature at school, and I started realizing that there was a depth to poetry and to, you know, literature in many ways and in all these spiritual traditions. And I was thinking, why aren't these truths connected to science? So I started to blend them in my own life. I had a number of spiritual teachers and professors that I worked with. And then when I got into the clinic and was working with patients, I started to see my right brain and left brain were working together as I would talk with somebody. They tell me what's wrong with them physically, and I can start to see the emotional and the mental sides. So the holistic position of detox for me is really where it's at. You know, this is really more than a detox, actually. It's really about how do you change your life? Because to me, a detox is temporary. It's short-lived. You know, you do this binge, whatever it is, you take some supplements and then you move on. And for me, it's about how do you create healthy lifestyle changes. And a toxin can be anything from emotional baggage. It could be a toxic thought. It could be a toxic relationship. It could be a job that you feel depleted at. There are so many different toxins out there, just aside from heavy metals and parabens and phthalates and all the things in our environment. So I hope that that answers. It was kind of a personal, professional weaving together. So your two questions. So number one, how often can you do whole detox?
Yes.
Hopefully you make whole detox a way of life. That there are certain things that can be brought in because it's very safe. You know, children can do whole detox. Families have done whole detox. So eventually, it's not really just even a 21-day program. It's something that you just do. You live the whole detox life.
Incorporated.
You incorporate it. And I have a chapter in the book that's called Whole Detox for Life. So to answer that first question. And then the second question around, you know, how does this integrate with the Indian system of fasting? And even I look at religious traditions, whether it's, you know, in Christianity or Judaism, you know, Islam, there are many different fasting traditions, right? And the way that I work fasting in is on the spirit days of the program, which are days 19 through 21. So for the first couple of days of the program, it's very food intensive to get everybody on the same track. And then as they move through the program, everything is all the colors of the food. And then as they start whittling down on the last 3 days, you'll notice that the menu in the book is very calorie light on those days. Because I feel that you have to have a good basis before you do something rigorous like a fast. Many people are too sick to fast.
Absolutely.
They're only going to have side effects. So it's not even a, yeah, and I do believe in the power of fasting, but for certain people under certain conditions where we know about their health and, you know, they're robust.
It's difficult to go straight.
It's very,
deep water, but thank you, you answer
yeah. Well, and those days of the program are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so hopefully people have the weekend to kind of ease away from that. And I do the whole detox program online, if anybody's interested. We do it internationally. We're starting October 1st. So to answer your first question about when or how many times, you know, we actually do it as a group. And maybe, Dilys, you would like to say some things about your experience in whole detox. If I'm not putting you on the spot too much. It's beyond me. This work has taken on a life of its own to the point that it has created this community, like you're saying, where people are just so excited and inspired to actually do this for themselves and for other people. So I'm just the messenger. So it's, I just get goosebumps, you know, just really thinking about the potential of this to go into companies, to go into hospitals, to really reach people at a deeper level than, you know, just to have a trendy detox program, because that's not what this is. It's a reset, but with the ultimate goal to take people into a healthier lifestyle for a better quality of life. I also would like to pass out, while the question is being asked, I want to pass out another gift, which is, I believe in the power of the art to unlock the brain in different ways that science cannot access. So one of the things that I did in order to do that was creating a card deck to bring to the meal. And all of the cards are color-coded. So I'm going to pass this around, and I would like you to not look at the cards. And when you get the card, you know, once you've picked a card, turn it over, look at it. I picked green. So look at the message that it provides, and look at the strip of color at the bottom, because that'll tell you which color that you need to be most in tune with now, or that is most resonant with you. So I'll just pass it around. Well, and you can just pass it down if you like. And this is your card to keep, so whatever card you get is yours. So bring it to your table. It's focused on food, so that's kind of the focus of the Nourish Your Whole Self card deck. The enlightenment, when all of these systems are flourishing. Absolutely. When, you know, I see so many people who are very spiritual, but they're not in their bodies. And to me, that's an incomplete picture. They haven't really embraced being here now. So when I see somebody who's strong in their root and they're centered in their body and they pay attention to what their body is telling them, as much as somebody who has emotional health and awareness and the thoughts, that they can control their thoughts and what comes through their mind, they're moving, they're not stagnant, they're not stuck, they're flowing throughout their everyday, through their physical body, that they speak their truth, that they are able to visualize, dream, and intuit things and pay attention to what comes forth, as well as being connected to their spirit, their light, their soul, who they really are at their core and why they're here. That's what I see as enlightenment, is it's a full spectrum. And those are very rare to find. We're always working through those different systems. Thank you for the question. That was excellent.
I'm a tea drinker, so I have a lot of tea. So what sort of tea do you like for us to have?
Yes, so you're asking about what kind of tea that is good to
green
have.
tea.
My biggest principle with any food or drink is variety. So use different teas. I almost like to go through the colors of tea. So rooibos. You have rooibos tea here? It's the red tea. So red leaf tea. And then looking at maybe orange, kind of an orange flavored tea. Any kind of yellow chamomile tea to soothe and quiet. Green tea, mint tea, peppermint tea. You know, these types of, maybe to kind of correlate with the colors.
Different types.
Yeah. And I would say, teas are such great detox vehicles. If I'm just talking medical now and not artistic, the literature supports the use of teas as a medicinal agent to really work with the liver to move things through. And that's part of the detox process. Did you all get your card? How were your colors? Did you see the color at the bottom? Anybody want to share? You got white. So the lavender would correlate to the white, so the spirit. Okay. And then there's a little booklet inside the card deck which goes a little bit more into what the card means. But I don't always like for people to read the interpretation. I want you to connect to the card to feel what you get from the card.